Hey there, guys. So, this video is more for the younger lifters. Like, a lot of the time, I focus on, the time poor dads and things like that because, that's the reality of life as you get older. Now, I get a lot of messages from, people asking, what do you do when you first start out? And a lot of people, that also follow me, they're definitely, just either getting into uni or just finishing up school. So, money for them, they don't have as much, and they can't invest, heavily into their training from like a financial point of view. Now, when it comes to people in that situation, you still have heaps and heaps of potential, and you've got years and years and years of training ahead of you. So some of the best advice I would give, younger lifters, or when I first started powerlifting, I was 16 years old. So it applies to when I first started. One of the biggest things you can do, and a lot of people, really screw this up, and you got complete control over it, is get into a really good, sleep routine. Now, I'm going to start that first because that's the easiest thing to fix. And when you address that, it will make a massive difference to obviously, your hormone profile, the amount of testosterone and growth hormone you produce, as well as your, general energy levels. Now, if you want to be, competitive in whatever sport you want to do, or, just get bigger and stronger, so many people in that age demographic, their sleep patterns are just shocking. They stay up all night, they, watching whatever it is, and then, just playing video games and, staying really quite hyped up until early hours of the morning. And, that is just going to wreck your hormone profile like no tomorrow. It's really, really bad. So if you can master just getting to bed, I would say if you can get into bed at 9:45 and be asleep by 10 p.m. and set an alarm for 6 a.m. in the morning, like a lot of people go, 6 a.m. is pretty early. But once you get into the habit of, waking up at 6 a.m. and going to bed, 9:45, 10 o'clock, and you're getting 8 hours of quality sleep, it's going to do two things. As a younger person, you've got this big block of time before your day actually starts. That could be where you go and do, your really light, training, your 10-minute run, work on some of your mobility, set yourselves up well for breakfast. If you had any extra study that you had to do, you can knock it out in the morning. It just sets you up really, really well. Because at the end of the day, once you've finished work or once you've finished uni, if you go and train, that's great. But once you get home, then after that, apart from having your, evening meal to recover, everything else tends to be wasted time. So try and view sleep then as something productive that you're doing for yourself to help with your training. And, in that regard, it will be, mentally easier to accept, okay, I got to get into a routine because it's really going to help my training a lot. And, in some instances, yeah, getting up at 6 a.m. and then having, that, even if you wanted the 30 minutes of just peace in the morning, just laying there contemplating your day, how it's going to unfold, it just brings a lot of stability from a mental standpoint, and that's going to reduce a lot of stress. After, quality sleep, nutrition is obviously a big one. Some people, depending, if they live at home, if they do or don't have a job, try and the best thing I'd probably say is look either for a part-time job, not heaps and heaps, but you just want a few hours so you can get some basics for food that you're going to need that's going to help with training. So quality red meat and protein powder is going to go a very, very long way. Apart from that, I really wouldn't invest in any other supplements. In terms of pre-workout, coffee is fine. That's all I ever use. So yeah, getting nutrition then on track and getting used to a set meal plan. You might be someone who enjoys intermittent fasting and they just don't eat in the morning, they just have a coffee. Whatever your style, just get into a habit of having a few basic staples for quality food, and avoiding junk food as much as possible, especially when it comes to stuff that's really high in sugar. It's the sugar that derails you long term, not so much, the fat in a meal. It's just really sugar is the thing that really does impact you the most. If you have a whole lot of ice cream or stuff like that, you're really spiking your insulin levels. Blood sugar levels go up. It's just not a healthy spot to be in. So yeah, if you're going to eat out, just choose different, food when eating out. You might eat out less, but go for higher quality meals, getting, the bigger steaks or the bigger burgers, avoiding, a whole lot of you might just avoid dessert entirely and just go with the bigger meal. But nutrition and getting that on point with a few staple, meals is a really important. The other thing would be really limiting alcohol. You'll see so many people, just drink, in excess on the weekend, and they take other substances, and it just derails you. It's just something that you would just completely avoid. Like, I was never a big drinker. I rarely drank at all. I didn't muck around. I didn't do any other weird stuff on the weekend. I always just enjoyed my training, and I was really fortunate in that regard. It was something that I looked forward to. I've always competed in powerlifting, since I was 16. So yeah, I just put a whole lot of time and energy, into that endeavor. But drinking, look, having one beer, with your mates, and the rest of it's really important from like a social standpoint. You don't want to be isolated. You don't want to throw, all your friendships away because you're just trying to pursue one goal when you're young. Like, the reality is, keep drinking to an absolute minimum, and the effect that it'll have on your body will be, virtually, nothing if you literally cap it at one drink. If you can't cap it at one drink, then probably don't drink at all. That's the harsh reality of it. If you can't cap it at one, then just don't bother. If you're going to go and get wasted every weekend, it is going to really add up, and it's just not going to help with your training whatsoever. So, yeah, avoiding alcohol, or, just having a minimum, of just one is going to go a very long way in terms of overall health. After, that, there's, your training and just being consistent. Now, you'll see heaps of people, try all these, different programs. They'll change it up. They'll try and follow whichever, celebrity or bodybuilder or powerlifter or whatever they, idolize. The reality is, if you stick to a simple program and just do it well and let time do the work, you're going to get stronger and, bigger than, 99.9% of the people that weight train. Because, there's a whole lot of people that weight train, but very few of them, really look after their sleep. Even fewer look after their nutrition, and even fewer of them, so many of them just end up drinking in excess. If you can get all three of those under control, and you have like below average genetics, you're still going to, exceed. You're still going to excel. You're going to end up so far ahead of, not only general population, but general weight training population. And, there'll be a lot of people asking, oh, how did you do such and such? Like, if you can stick to those basics and do that well for like 5-6 years, you're going to end up with a really, really good physique that stands out. And then as you get older, just create a few, set habits. Always try and stick to your sleep where you can, because that becomes really important. Stick to quality food, just as I said, just a few quality meals, a few staples in your diet that you can, easily eat. So you have no problem, getting adequate protein, things like that is going to make a massive difference. Also, if you're eating well and feeling full, you don't have those big sugar cravings. You don't randomly just get hungry for no reason. Your blood sugar levels are much more stable. So falling off your diet becomes a lot harder because your body's not in a state of, disarray. It knows what it's trying to do. So, yeah, that's important. And probably lastly, like, if you have an injury, or say for instance you hurt your shoulder or hurt your lower back, some people really get down about they can't go and train, or this, that, and the other. My take on it is, just drop the weight back. Just drop it back, make it very light, and just go through the movements without any significant pain whatsoever. And then on top of doing that, say for instance it's going to take you 3-4 weeks of light training. For those 3 or 4 weeks, view it as a recomp phase. Be really strict with your diet. Go into a slight deficit if you need to. Just go, you know what, yeah, I can't train as heavy as I'd like, but I'm not wasting time. I'm prioritizing my diet. I'm going into a deficit. And, if you're in a calorie deficit, you're not going to be pushing your training as hard because you just end up getting injured. And you end up burning out. So it's like strategically going, okay, look, if I'm going to diet really quite hard, drop a few percentage points of body fat, I'm not going to be pushing my main lifts really hard. So therefore I can chase, the much higher rep ranges because, it's more suited towards the goals that I'm trying to achieve. And then, after your 3-4 weeks, there's a very good chance that your shoulder or back or whatever you've injured has recovered because, you haven't heavily loaded, the area that's, compromised. So, having a positive mindset in that regard makes, a world of difference. And, the other way you could view it is if you're slightly hurt, whatever it is, you might go, okay, hurt my shoulder, I'm going to really prioritize legs in this next 3 to 4 week block. Or, I've hurt my lower back or whatever it is. It's like, okay, I'm going to focus on, really developing hamstrings, seated leg curls, things like that. Putting a whole lot of, volume into other areas. And then whatever movements you can't do, you just deload them heavily. There's always something that you're going to be able to work on while you're injured. And, if you just need a complete deload from everything, just go on a really strict diet, make sure your sleep's on point, and, go and catch up with a few of your mates. Like, there is other things to life, but if you can get your headspace in the spot that you need in order to excel, training, for years and years becomes, something that's really sustainable, something that you'll always enjoy, and something that you're not going to burn out from. So that's, how I'd view it. And especially, as you get older, if you have that maturity as well, when, if you have kids, like, temporarily your training just gets thrown into, you've got no chance of structuring anything. And that's sort of, what it's been like for me for the last 3 and a bit months. So, you learn to accept that, it's only a phase of life. Life goes on, as long as you're, putting some work in, trying to maintain, working on the areas that you can, that difficult chapter is going to pass, and then you continue to progress forward. And then, you look back at where you're having, your difficult, time or what you're struggling with. And then you look at other people, that are still, going to the gym, and you realize, you're not even going to bother comparing yourself because you're that far ahead that they're never going to catch up because they don't have any of the other discipline. Like, it doesn't matter what they do, they're just never going to get there. They don't understand the importance of sleep, nutrition, being able to take a step back and deload, not, getting drunk on the weekends. They just don't get it. So, put yourself in a different, frame of mind, and you'll excel. So, that's, my advice for younger lifters. Let time do its work. Stick to the basics. Really look after yourself while you're young. Also, while you're young, your testosterone levels are going to be much higher anyway. So your rate of progress is going to be great. So, maximize it while you can. I plan on lifting basically forever. Like, it's just a sport that I enjoy. I really enjoy powerlifting. I like doing some of the strongman stuff and mucking around with the natural stones. So look, I'm just going to continue plodding along, and there's many times where I've had to deload along the way just due to life, but you easily get back to where you were. So just keep the positive habits. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys want any other video topics, let me know as well. Other than that, hit like and subscribe, and have a great day wherever you are.